What's up everybody, it's Luster Perch Pink here, and today we're back with another challenge video. I don't think I need to bring up how long it's been since I've done one of these. So, without further ado, let's get to it. I wanted to do an idea along the same vein of the recoil challenge video, the challenge in lying more so in the mechanics rather than the Pokemon's poor stats. I had a few ideas since then, and this video was a concept I wanted to give a shot. Can you beat a Pokemon game with only recharge moves? When I say recharge moves, I'm talking about moves such as Roar of Time and Blast Burn that render the user immobile after they use it. These are powerful moves, but not only do they have the recharge turn, they're also pretty inaccurate as well. This will inevitably create a problem when I absolutely need a move to hit and it doesn't. It actually took me longer to figure out how I wanted to do this rather than actually doing it. There were several times I attempted to figure out the who, what, and where, such as what Pokemon should be the focus, what moves it should get, and what game it should be in. Originally I was going to use a Typhlosion in Gen 4, sporting Blast Burn, Giga Impact, Hyper Beam, and an undecided fourth move, but my previous challenge was in Gen 4, so I decided against it. Besides, the only thing that resembles a fourth recharge move in Typhlosion's move pool is Solar Beam, and I don't technically count it as it charges and can skip the waiting turn with weather conditions. Truth be told, after looking into it for a while, I don't think there's a non-gimmick Pokemon that can learn 4 recharge moves. So when I was contemplating how to go about this, my mind went to a Pokemon that could learn most moves. Smeargle. Smeargle is a Pokemon whose whole thing is to copy moves by using its signature move, Sketch, and therefore has access to most every attack, even exclusive ones like Dark Void. The elemental ultimate moves are no exception. Not only that, but Smeargle isn't the greatest Pokemon. I figured using one as opposed to a starter would add another layer of challenge. Using PK Hex, I was able to craft my ultimate Smeargle. I gave it random IVs this time around to add to the difficulty. I gave it the moves Hyper Beam, Frenzy Plant, Hydro Cannon, and Blast Burn, plus a neutral nature, since this was before the physical special split, and trust me, I don't want any stat to be lacking with a Pokemon like this. I gave my newborn son the name Rohan because, Anyway, onto the rules. As per usual, I cannot use any Pokemon besides Smeargle in battle. To deal with double battles, I'll use a Pokeball or the Pokeflute to waste a turn for the Pokemon I'm battling with. No items in battle, with the exception of held ones. HM slaves are permitted, but are not to be used to switch into to waste a turn or heal. No using pickups to get items such as rare candies and berries. Now that the ground rules are laid out, without further ado, let the challenge begin. We start off in Pallet Town and head for the grass, though Professor Oak stops us before we can go in. Please, let me go. Let the purple rats consume my flesh. Let the Pidgeys peck at my eyes. End my suffering. Instead, he insists that we need a Pokemon that takes us to the lab. He lets us select from a Charmander, Squirtle, or Bulbasaur, and in this run, there's no type advantage to be gained, so I select Charmander, just because Blastoise is the bulkiest out of the three. If you try this, I recommend experimenting with giving the rival different starters, as the champion fight is interesting. Speaking of the rival, who is this? MDB? I wonder what that could possibly stand for.
Sub to Mature Bread and follow him on Twitter if you don't already. He's the inspiration for these Pokemon challenges.
Instead of using the Charmander, I utilize PK Hex to hack in the Smeargle that I have made, then delete the Charmander from the save. Sorry, bud. Then the fight with the rival is on. As suspected, it's quite simple. Frenzy Plant hits, and the Squirtle goes down without a fight. To be honest, much of the early game is like this, so I'll only be going in depth about the fights that gave me a problem. Speaking of which, the first fight to give me an issue was, ironically, the very next rival fight on Route 22. This fight is skippable, but I do like to do it for gaining experience and keeping on par with the game. At this point, Rohan is level 7, and I figured that I could easily take out Pokemon 2 or 3 levels above with the sheer power of the recharge move. However, the problem is that the rival's Pidgey absolutely loves to use Sand Attack, which lowers my accuracy, and for moves that already have significantly lower chances to hit, this absolutely decimates any chance of Rohan winning the fight without getting Pidgey down quick. Instead, I decided to take on Viridian Forest first. Though it's simple enough to blaze right through the bug catchers with Blast Burn, there are still several instances I have to go back and heal due to PP loss. This actually happens a lot throughout the run, and it actually caused a few blackouts due to not having moves that were super effective, or at the very least, did neutral damage to Pokemon. Also, I did black out due to poison at one point, which is minorly irritating, but overall, didn't really matter, as money merely makes challenges more convenient. After nearly burning down Viridian Forest, we head into Pewter City to obtain our first badge. Brock is a pushover, as his only 2 Pokemon are quad weak to 2 of my moves. 2 hits and the fight is over. With that, the Boulder Badge is ours, and now I feel confident enough to take on the Route 22 rival fight again. MDB goes down easily this time to a Hyper Beam on his Pidgey and then a Frenzy Plant on his Squirtle. That stupid Pidgey doesn't even have a chance to hit me with the stand attack, and the Squirtle can't do much damage on my recharge turn. Now, it's time for the long haul to Cerulean. I defeat all the trainers on the way there and head inside of Mount Moon. I know that this place is going to be more annoying than difficult, especially since we only have 20 PP to get through. With due diligence and careful distribution of my resources though, I am able to defeat Team Rocket and I scoop up the Dome Fossil. Yes, I got the Dome Fossil. I need to sell my soul to Satan to beat this challenge. With Rohan on red health, we make it to Cerulean City. This place was always annoying whenever I was a kid, due to the fact that I was stuck between two fairly difficult battles for this early on in the game. The rival fight and the Misty fight. I attempted the latter first, hoping that our power with these moves would be enough to overcome her, but unfortunately, I couldn't quite cut it. Staryu goes down easily, but her Starmie is a force to be reckoned with. It gets the recharge turn to hit me with a water pulse, and then it outspeeds me even on my attacking turn. I can get it down into the yellow, but unfortunately, Rohan doesn't have enough health to tank another attack, and he goes down on the next turn. I knew that this fight was probably not possible yet, so I simply opted to do the rival fight in the Nugget Bridge first. It struck me how simple the Nugget Bridge fight actually turned out to be. I'm unsure if I would have actually outsped MDB's Pidgeotto, but for whatever reason, it went for a quick attack instead of a sand attack. I'm not complaining though, as it gave me room for a Hyper Beam, and then the rest of his team went down just as easy. The Nugget Bridge itself was nothing. There was, of course, a lot of running back and forth between the Pokemon Center and the fights, but overall, there was nothing too noteworthy. Man, fighting this Rocket Grunt again really reminds me of how much I wish we could have become a member of Team Rocket in an official Pokemon game, but oh well, we have ROM hacks for that. We fight our way to Bill's house and transform him back into a human. Thank God he's just a Clefairy in this game. The Fire Red Leaf Green interpretation of this scene is probably the least terrifying. Remember in Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee when he's a Nidoran and stands? And in the manga when he's a Rattata and he's about to get eaten by a Pharaoh? Oh god, this brings up some terrifying implications. After getting through that terror, I decided to go face the real horror once again, Misty's fight. I figured that being level 29 would aid me in winning. The results were pretty much the same though. Staryu went down easily, but Starmie would just hang on and was able to fight back, effectively taking Rohan out. This doesn't bother me too much though, as we have a lot of trainers before Vermilion and after it, and also on the SS Anne that we can grind up with. Luckily, the SS Anne has a healing spot in this game, so I can quickly grind on the trainers on the ship. I guess playing Gen 3 Kanto has spoiled me a little bit, as when I played Gen 1 for the first time, I was mortified that I kept having to go back to the Pokemon Center, especially with that egregious walking speed. Some people would argue that things like this make the experience easier, but I just say it makes it far more efficient. With our new levels, MDB doesn't stand a chance against us. We don't get Sand Attack, despite Pidgeotto not going down on the first turn. I drown his Raticate with a Hydro Cannon, Kadabra hits me with a Kinesis, but despite this, I'm still able to take it and the following Wartortle down. With that, MDB is defeated once again, and we can finally get cut. For some reason, I wanted to take care of Misty before I headed to Surge. Perhaps I thought that Surge was going to prove more difficult. We return to Cerulean, and everything is pretty open and shut there. By now I'm level 36, and none of her Pokemon stand a chance. Staryu goes down like normal, and even though Starmie still outspeeds me, I'm able to take it down with a single Frenzy Plant. Despite her victory, I was still feeling a bit anxious about Surge. I went to fight their trainers on Route 11 just to gain a couple of levels before the battle. I think it was my subconscious mind from bad experiences with him from whenever I was a child that was building up this fight in my head. Although thinking back on it, my worries were justified in the context of this challenge. Paralyzing moves and Double Team. This could be a nightmare of a fight. It actually ended up being simple enough though. Voltorb goes down easily, and although Pikachu gets a paralysis and a double team off, it goes down in one hit. Last is Surge's annoying Raichu. It was mostly just a feeble struggle to survive against Rohan's wrath through stalling, but eventually we got a hit off and we won. With Surge taken care of, we can finally head for Lavender. It was around this time that I decided to avoid unnecessary trainers to the best of my ability so that Rohan wouldn't be too overleveled, and so that I wouldn't have to keep going back to the Pokemon Center to heal over and over. Between us and the next part of the game is Rock Tunnel. Fun fact, this place was the bane of my existence as a kid. Despite Leaf Green being the first Pokemon game I played, it was not the first Pokemon game I completed, as this part always messed me up. I had no idea where to go, and I had no internet to look up a guide at the time, so every time I beat Surge, I'd simply reset the game. Yeah, I was kinda stupid. But this time, I have the magic of guides to help me get through Rock Tunnel. But that still didn't stop me from fainting about halfway through and having to do the whole thing again. Really, Game Freak? Really? I hate this cave with every fiber of my being. But eventually, we make it to Lavender Town. The scariest thing about it being the sheer number of creepypastas that has spawned from its existence. Now that we're all rested up, we brush that white hand off our shoulder and head for Celadon. The place is currently under Team Rocket occupation, though we're going to the gym before we clean up the crime. I battled a few gym trainers to get to Erica and faced off with her. I was wondering why she didn't try to protect her city. from the Team Rocket coup, but then upon seeing her grass team, I realized that she probably couldn't face off against grunts with poison types. She couldn't face off against a little Smeargle either. Her whole team mostly crumbled to blast burns, though Vileplume did put up a fight and even managed to get Rohan in the red. Though, with some RNG blessing, I managed to finish her off in the 4th badge's arc. Next is the Rocket hideout beneath the Rocket game corner. Wow, great job hiding the fact that your organization runs this place. Very subtle naming scheme, and a totally not suspicious dude in uniform standing in front of a poster. Illusion 100! The place is mostly simple to storm and I avoid as many grunts as possible, though one Raticate several levels below me gave me some trouble and I ended up whiting out. Another problem arose with one of Giovanni's bodyguards outside of his room, but ultimately I came back and kicked butt. Then it was time for the Rocket boss himself. Honestly, I was surprised that I didn't win on the first try. He has 2 Pokemon that are quad weak to Hydro Cannon, so I was sure the fight was in the back. But that Kangaskhan really put up a counter attack and blew me back. I had better luck on the second attempt and used Hyper Beam instead of any other move just for that same time attack bonus, and I ended up winning the standoff. After obtaining the Silph Scope from Giovanni, we head for Lavender Town and take on the tower. Though I'm too lazy to use the underground path from Celadon, so I just scoop up some tea and bribe the guards to let me into Saffron. I cross through the city to get to our next destination. Don't worry, Rohan will take you on soon enough. Before we can put Marowak Spirit to rest, we have another battle with MDB. Surprisingly, this battle isn't too much to speak of. Pidgeot doesn't even get a sand attack off due to the fact we take it out so quickly, and the rest of the team is simple as well. After finishing him off, I find that the rest of the tower is pretty easy as well, especially since I skip over the unnecessary battles, and the fact that there is a healing spot really helps. Team Rocket is not noteworthy in the slightest, though their next appearance, Silphco, truly is. You know, I always say I remember the layout of Silphco's puzzle, but in reality, I just know the key events. Get the card key on some floor and head to floor 3. Honestly, I forget if that's even accurate. I did wipe out once fighting a grunt, as I don't remember where the healing spot is. Oh yeah, it's big brain time. Besides that one defeat, the Team Rocket parts aren't really too much to speak of, but oh my god, the next rival battle is absolutely ridiculous. The true challenge of this run comes in when there is a team of 3 or more good Pokemon. Rohan's strength lies in getting the first Pokemon down, tanking the hit from the next, and then managing to take down the other Pokemon. But MDB's team is now bigger and much stronger than before. His Pidgeot can survive a Hyper Beam, and to make things worse, it absolutely loves to Feather Dance. On a move pool that has primarily special moves, you wouldn't think this to be a problem, but his Alakazam is terrifying. Alakazam actually has decent special defense, and although it's lacking in its defense, it has Reflect to take care of this issue. It is also an extremely powerful Pokemon. It hits like a truck, and if it can get an attack off on Rohan, it's over. Especially seeing as to how he releases it way later in the battle, after Rohan has taken a lot of damage. So yeah, I absolutely need to take it down ASAP, and having to use multiple special moves is not it, Chief. Not only that, but an Execute lies in my way. This normally wouldn't be scary, but it has Stun Spore, which makes me move last, and has a possibility to paralyze me on the turns I can actually attack. So the first big wall in this game is this fight, and trust me, I tried it many times. I decided that it would be preferable to head on to Fuchsia first. There are a lot of trainers along the way, plus a gym, so I suppose that getting Rohan up a few levels for this fight couldn't hurt. I set off on Cycling Road and headed to Koga's gym. I wish it would have been as simple as that, though it was sort of annoying on Cycling Road with all the bulky poison types, which spelled a bad omen for the next major battle. After finally making it to Fuchsia, I head straight for the gym. Woo boy, let me tell you, it was just as irritating as I thought it was going to be. Koga's team is stacked with high-level, tanky poison Pokemon. To make things worse, the team utilizes stall tactics, such as Muck boosting its evasiveness and poisoning your Pokemon. I knew I was in for an absolute treat with this fight. I attempted this battle several times, only to be stumped by the Muck each and every time. I eventually conceded to do a bit of training on the trainers outside of Fuchsia, getting Rohan up to level 60. I decided that it was a good idea to try this fight once again, and although it did take several attempts, 60 was my lucky number. I was stupid the first few times, but then realized that Mug was especially defensive, more so than physically, so I switched to using Hyper Beam consistently. If I didn't get poisoned by Sludge, Mug was an easy opponent to take down, but the Weezing was still a concerning foe. Even keeping in mind its weakness in special defense, it could still live a hit with the chance of self-destructing or taking me out. After a couple good attempts though, Koga was defeated and the Soul Badge is ours. With our new levels in the badge, we head back to face MDB once again. This time, we still have no luck with the fight. His team is thoroughly stacked. I decided to get the Leftovers, which is a hidden item where either of the two Snorlaxes were sleeping. However, in this game, getting hidden items is a bit different. I realized that you have to catch 30 Pokemon in order to get the item finder, which is absolutely necessary to get hidden items in this game that are not berries. So I decided against it, unless it was absolutely necessary. Instead, I just took on the fight over and over again, hoping to get lucky. Even if I take down the Alakazam, I still have to withstand the Blastoise's wrath. Though, after several tries, I finally get lucky, and the stars align to allow for a win. I take down the Pidgeot in one hit with a crit, and the Growlithe goes down easily to a Hydro Cannon. The Execute misses its Stun Spore, giving me an advantage. Alakazam uses Future Sight on its turn instead of Psychic, which leaves me with a good amount of health, and now that I outspeed, I hit it with Hyper Beam first thing, giving it no chance to set up Reflect. The Blastoise doesn't take me out, and it's finally free to finish off with 2 Frenzy Plants. Next up is Giovanni. Once again, I underestimated this fight and his Kangaskhan, so I ended up getting blown back and sent all the way back to the Pokemon Center. Though, this was the only time it gave me problems, as on the second attempt, everything went down smooth as butter. Giovanni is defeated once again, and now the only fight that remains of his is the Earth Badge one, but we'll get to that later. With the Team Rocket grunts off the streets, we head to Sabrina's gym. I skip out on the trainers as I feel I don't want to get too many levels above her. I was admittedly a little wary of this fight, but ultimately, it's pretty open and shut. Not too much to say about it, except for the fact that even though it was simple, it put me down in the red, which is not a good sign for the rest of the game. Now it's time to head for Cinnabar Island. Well, more so time for me to act like an idiot about heading there. I suddenly remembered the Lapras was a thing and headed back to Silph Co to scoop it up. Afterward, I thought absolutely nothing of it, figuring it was all just a straight shot to Cinnabar from there. Instead of being practical and catching a Fly Slave, I walked all the way back to Pallet Town. And you know what I realized after clicking on the water? Oh! I haven't taught my Lapras Surf. You want to know what else I realized whenever I opened my TM case? There was no Surf HM. Yep, I had completely neglected the Safari Zone. What's worse? I didn't even have Fly. I forgot to get it. So, yeah, back to Fuchsia for me. I went back and got Surf, Strength, and Fly to cover all of the bases so we wouldn't have to head back this way again. I then headed on to Pallet Town, and finally, we can go to Cinnabar. Upon finally getting there, we take on the mansion. It is a snooze fest, and pretty unnoteworthy. I didn't even get knocked out, as I avoided as many fights as possible. Now it's time to take on Blaine at last. I wasn't too worried about this one, and I expected maybe a loss or two at max. Imagine my surprise when this fight actually gave me a bit of trouble and I had to attempt it multiple times. The Pokemon went down easily to Hydro Cannons, yes, but the off turns were what really got me. Blaine's fire Pokemon have hard-hitting attacks that have a chance to burn, and for some reason, I did keep getting burned over and over. Murphy's Law. What can go wrong will go wrong. The fight is mostly just praying at the pivotal moment that the Arcanine will miss a Fire Blast, and eventually, by the will of God, it did. With that, the Volcano Badge is ours. Bill invites us to the Sevi Islands, which I cockily shrug off. Ha! It's not even part of the main story. Why should I care about your dumb side quest? We're high level enough. Now, it's time for us to head for Viridian City. I'm not gonna sing it. Not gonna sing it. Not gonna sing it. On the road to Viridian City! Now that we're there with 7 badges in hand, we can finally take on Giovanni, the final foe in our Gym Leader Challenge. And oh boy, when will I learn not to underestimate him? With 2 Pokemon that are quad weak to 2 of our attacks, how could we possibly lose? The answer, Giovanni's longevity. Smeargle is not exactly a bulky Pokemon, and those Earthquakes were really doing some big damage in the recharge turns. By Giovanni's last Pokemon, Rohan was weakened enough to take out. This fight became such a problem for me that I actually ended up fighting all the gym trainers and even going out to the grass before Victory Road to grind up a bit. After much grinding and several miserable attempts later, I finally had some luck. All of his Pokemon went down easily, and Rhyhorn decided to go for a Scary Face instead of an Earthquake. It missed, and although I'm unsure if it really would have had an impact on the battle, I was thankful for it, and that left free range for Rohan to finish it off. With that, the fight is finally over, and with the 8th badge in hand, we set out for Victory Road. Unlike Giovanni, I have never underestimated MDB. And the rival before Victory Road really shows the terror that awaits us in the Pokemon League. A full team of 6, a feather-dancing, fairly bulky Pidgeot, a Stun-Spore and Execute, a Sweeper Alakazam, and a Blastoise that could come in from the rear and finish Rohan off easily on the recharge turn. This fight was absolute hell. It was so bad that I just quit at one point and went to sleep. It took a god-awful amount of attempts and a lot of going back and grinding with unbattled trainers. It was only at level 74 that I got lucky enough to win. I took the Pidgeot out with 1 Hyper Beam, took out Rhyhorn easily, finished off the Growlithe, Execute missed a Stun Spore, I took Alakazam out when it was setting up, and I took out Blastoise with 2 Frenzy Plants. Holy crap. The sigh of relief I let out when I finally finished this battle was huge. But I couldn't be relieved for long, for the Pokemon League lie ahead, promising new hellish battles, and this will not be the last we see of MDB. Unfortunately, there's no cool badge check montage this time, as I had already entered the area and passed them during the grinding. But oh well, take my word for it. It was pretty hype. With all of that finished, we're finally ready to head into Victory Road. It wasn't as annoying as I thought it would be, though I did black out once due to a Karate Master. I can't be too mad about it though, as this was the only fluke I had. But finally, the light at the end of the tunnel shows itself, and we are at the Pokemon League at level 74. Time to do some shopping and stock up. 5 forward stores is my rule of thumb for the league on these challenges, though we only really need 4, but I like getting 5 just for the sake of having 5, because honestly it feels weird if I just buy 4. Buying any other items at this point in the game is unnecessary. I don't sell all my stuff though, as I have a bit of a suspicion that this won't be my final time in this league center, and I feel deep down that I'll need the money later. I decided that I should dip my toe into the waters of the Elite Four, and holy moly, I was not ready in the slightest. Lorelei was already giving me trouble. It takes 2 Frenzy Plants to take Dugong out, which gives the thing 2 chances to hit me with Surf. Her Cloyster is a strong follow-up that can do a lot of damage, if not take me out if it decides not to spam Protect. The Slowbro is a big issue as well, being bulky enough to tank a Frenzy Plant, which gives it opportunity to damage Rohan. I knew that the Elite Four and Champion were going to be quite the feat, though I never doubted it in the first place. After trying a few times, I knew that I needed to better prepare. I set off for Victory Road, cleaned up some trainers that I had skipped, grabbed up some items that I had neglected, and did some grinding on wild encounters. By the time all of this is done, Rohan is level 80, and while I think that this is going to be a level 100 run, I decide to test it again. Though I do significantly better than before, even making it to her Lapras, my attacks still aren't packing enough power to properly sweep, which is what I need if I hope to defeat her. Rohan can only take so much damage in a battle, and the HP needs to be distributed properly between enemy Pokemon. A margin of error could lead to a loss, and this far in the challenge, this principle holds truer than ever. So we head to Sevi with our tails between our legs instead of actually facing our problems at the league. Because it's meant to be done after the 7th gym, the Pokemon are lower levels, but it's better than nothing. And having a bit of story progression makes gaining levels a bit more tolerable. By the time we're all finished with the Sevi side quest, Rohan is level 85. I think I may have done some off-camera grinding as well to even the levels out, as I'm pretty sure the side quest on its own wasn't enough to bring me that high. After trying the Lorelei fight again a few more times, I realized that the truth is inevitable. I'm going to need to be level 100 to beat the game in this current state. I decided to do some galaxy brain plays, and instead of going back to Victory Road to grind, I keep fighting and losing to Lorelei again and again. I think that this is a faster technique than just going in Victory Road and grinding, or at least it felt that way. It made the process just a bit more bearable for me. I gave one last-ditch attempt at beating Lorelei at level 90 before the grind to 100. Though, on these attempts, I actually ended up having worse luck with Lorelei's battle, even losing at the Slowbro of all things. I took this as a sign that we actually needed to grind up to 100, and for me to stop stalling. After getting to level 91, I go and scoop up some rare candies that I've been neglecting, making for a total of 9, and I use them to finish off Rohan's level. Now, he's finally at level 100, and there's no place to go but into the Elite Four chambers. And the Lorelei fight doesn't get any easier. I'm still struggling with it. I try to give Rohan a Chesto Berry in order to help him recover from Slowbro, or Jinx putting him to sleep, though with 2 Pokemon having this ability, it's still difficult. It's all luck dependent, really. The strategy is just to Frenzy Plant and Blast Burn your way through her. The stars align though, and a Lorelei is eventually put out of commission. Now it's time for Bruno. And good God, not even being level 100 could save me from the crap I went through with this fight. His team is full of hard-hitting fighting types, sandwiched between 2 Onix for some reason. The first Onix is easy to take down with either a Hydro Cannon or Frenzy Plant, but the real issue begins after this first phase. He always swaps into his Hitmonchan afterward. The only moves I ever saw out of this thing were Sky Uppercut and Rock Tomb for some reason, and the latter is much preferable to the former. The speed drop doesn't particularly matter due to Smeargle's speed stat being its strongest, and, well, the fact that we are nearly 50 levels above his whole team. Despite our speed advantage though, the recharge turn is a handicap, and next he swaps his Hitmonlee in. One Hyper Beam will take it out, though if we survive it using Brick Break, the damage is already done, and the Machamp can come in and easily finish things off. His Machamp is the scariest asset to his team, able to live a hit from Rohan and set up as it pleases. It also has Cross Chop, which is an absolutely devastating attack that Rohan cannot possibly live against after suffering so much damage from the other Pokemon. I honestly got a little annoyed because Cross Chop is only 80% accurate, and yet Bruno landed it every time. So I keep missing my ultimate moves, but you can hit a clutch Cross Chop? This game's rigged. Absolutely rigged. Though, we've known this about Pokemon for a while. Much to my dismay, this was a bit of a dead end. What else could I possibly do? No matter how many times I attempted to fight, I'd always end up going down to either Hitmonlee or Machamp. Is this the end? Is Rohan's glory over? Will he never be recognized as the victor of Kanto? No. I still have one more thing I haven't tried. I hoped that it wouldn't come to this, but I know it has to be my last-ditch effort to save this run, besides praying for good RNG. I allow myself to lose the Bruno fight after trying many more times than I could count. But don't worry, Bruno. We'll be back soon. You're spared. For now. My money is at 0 at this point from doing the Lorelei fight over and over to grind. Here I am, completely broke, going up to the counter at the League store. What can I possibly do? Luckily, I have stonks in items that I have picked up throughout the adventure, and it ends up giving me a good amount of money to do what I need to do. I buy a bunch of Ultra and Great Balls, then exit the league. With my knowledge of Kanto, I scoop up Pokemon from around the region until I've caught 30 different types. Why, you may ask? Well, there is good reason for it. Remember whenever I was talking about the item finder earlier? Catching all these different species is essential to obtain it from Professor Oak's aid, and I absolutely need it for my final push through the league. Once I have it, I head back to where the Snorlax was sleeping and pick up the leftovers. An item I, admittedly, probably should have taken the time to get earlier. I didn't want it to come down to me catching all these Pokemon, but oh well. This is to save the run. After all the battles we've overcome, why would I just lie down and accept the loss without a fight? With Rohan holding the leftovers, I take on the league once again. Lorelei's fight is still no cakewalk, and although the leftovers does help, it still takes multiple attempts to get past it again. I'm not giving up though, as I know that it is possible. It was mostly just good luck with the Jinx using a track rather than putting Rohan to sleep, and Rohan actually breaking through it to finish the fight with a Blast Burn. Now, we're back at Bruno. The kicker is that even without the leftovers, this certain attempt would have been possible in boosting me through the fight. Onix went down to a Hydro Cannon, of course. Hitmonchan decided to use Rock Tomb instead of a fighting move, which gave me an advantage, and I took it out in one Hyper Beam. Hitmonlee did get a Brick Break off, but it did less than half, and on the next turn, I easily took it out as well. And then comes the Machamp. Everything aligned perfectly to allow me to take this beast down. It decided to use 2 Scary Faces in a row, which allowed me to go for a Hyper Beam. It took it down to the red, which would have made Bruno heal, but the thing's Citrus Berry activated and put it back in the yellow, which didn't trigger the AI. If it did, this fight might not have been as peachy keen as it was, or at least it would have been far more annoying. But the second Hyper Beam was enough to take it out. The final Onix was down swiftly, and finally, the Titan, Bruno, has fallen. Agatha is up next. I didn't really know what to expect from this fight, though I held on to a shred of hope that it would be too tough. Turns out, to my surprise, I was correct. It only took a couple of tries. Her Gengar is agitating with Double Team, and her Arbok is especially so with Sludge. Rohan can tank it, but the problem comes when he gets poisoned. Still though, I managed to beat this fight fairly quickly with no bumps in the road, though I was very low on health and poison during my successful attempt. The final member of the Elite Four, Lance, is up next, and I knew that this one was going to give me trouble. Most of his Pokemon resist 3 of my moves, and his most powerful asset, Dragonite, is very tanky. I knew that this was not going to be a fun battle. Lance leads with Gyarados, which is already a problem. My only hope of destroying this team lies with Hyper Beam, and the attack drop hinders me. Not only that, but Gyarados also lives at least 2 hits, so that gives it the chance to hit me with a move. Taking damage at all before the next Pokemon isn't good, but it's pretty much unavoidable in this battle, so let's pray it doesn't opt for Hyper Beam. Gyarados, though a bad start for the battle, is easy to take down. Next, Lance sends out Aerodactyl, which will typically go for an Ancient Power, and it does only a little damage, so it isn't much of a threat. To my surprise, it only got the boost once out of all the times I attempted this. But anyway, it is a simple foe to defeat with only a Hydro Cannon. Now out comes the Dragonite. Good God, here comes the Dragonite. Luckily, it always goes for Safeguard on its first turn, which is my Recharge turn, but after that, it's hunting season. Dragonite goes absolutely crazy with a few Outrages. Outrage is an extremely powerful attack that Rohan can only withstand a few of, even less with the issue of the damage taken beforehand put into consideration. This thing is a monster that can withstand a Hyper Beam, and what's worse, even though Hyper Beam does about half health, Dragonite has a Citrus Berry, so even if I hit it again, it'll just be down in the red, and Lance can heal. Even if I do make it past Dragonite, I still have 2 Dragonairs to deal with. Both have Outrage, though one favors using Dragon Rage instead. The other has Thunder Wave in this slot, but oh my god, Paralysis is the worst in this challenge. I seldom make it past a Dragonite, and now these 2 wall me? This seems impossible. Basically, the plan was just to take everything out as quick as possible. Hit Dragonite twice, pray that it hit itself in Outrage Confusion to finish itself off, then try to do anything with the Dragonairs. I have about 35 minutes worth of footage of me struggling with this fight, countless attempts within that time span. It was hell, to say the very least. Let me tell you about this one particular attempt I had. First few turns are spent taking the Gyarados out. It unfortunately gets a Dragon Rage and Hyper Beam off on me, but at this point, I'm taking every attempt I can, hoping I can get better results than the last time. Aerodactyl goes for Scary Face on its free turn, but I'm not too worried about it, as the only Pokemon that can outspeed Rohan with the speed drop is the Aerodactyl itself. It goes down easily to a Hydro Cannon after hitting me with an Ancient Power. Dragonite comes out, and I miss the Hyper Beam, allowing Dragonite to get a crit Outrage. I'm already smacking myself on the head and going, shoot, this is bad. But I didn't reset, and, well, to my surprise, I get a crit Hyper Beam, and the Dragonite goes down. At this point, I'm like trembling in excitement, and the Dragonair comes out. It gets a Dragon Range on me, taking me back down to low health, but I use Hyper Beam, which takes it down in one hit. Okay, last Dragonair comes out and paralyzes me on the recharge turn. I opt for Blast Burn instead. As all the attempts I had where I got to this Dragonair, Hyper Beam didn't take it out in one hit, so I would rather it be hurt by a Blast Burn and not heal than it go down to red and Hyper Beam and Lance heal it. I get paralyzed on my turn. Outrage hits, takes me down to red health. Things are not looking good. I get the Blast Burn on the next turn, which takes the Dragonair down to yellow health. And luckily, it gets the Outrage Confusion. It hurts itself, which takes it down to the red in my recharge turn. Lance heals, unfortunately, and my attacking turn is wasted due to paralysis. I am fuming at this point. The Dragonair sets up a safeguard next turn, I get paralyzed again. Outrage again, but I've healed enough with leftovers to survive. This turn around, I selected Hyper Beam, and I actually hit it. I guess it's a range or something because the Dragonair goes down. Oh, did I mention this was the attempt where I won? Nah, I didn't. I wanted you guys to feel that suspense I went through as well. It was the worst. With Lance finally beaten, it's time for us to heal up. There's no more stalling to be done. This is it. The final battle with MDB. I know this champion fight will not be easy, especially after struggling with Lance. But MDB has a more diverse team, right? It should be simpler to take on than having to rely on attack-lowered Hyper Beam, right? Right? Wrong. This battle was awful. I don't know which was worse, this or the Lance. But I'll say this, by the end of this challenge, I was absolutely exhausted from the countless amounts of attempts I had done. The champion leads with his Pidgeot. The Pidgeot isn't scary as an attacker, but it has the dreaded move Sand Attack and Feather Dance. I know that I need a Hyper Beam to take the Alakazam out later on, and I have absolutely no chance of winning this fight with reduced accuracy. So all I can do is pray that Pidgeot attacks, or that I take it out in one shot. Most of the time though, the latter is not an option. Basically, the fight can be decided by the first Pokemon. Alakazam is an issue, though it does take a few Psychics to take Rohan down. Still though, it hits hard and needs to be eliminated as soon as possible. It's difficult to take it down in one hit due to its good amount of special defense, plus the fact that even if I don't get Feather Dance, it will still set up a Reflect, sharply raising its defense. Next up is Executor. This Pokemon will go down easily in one Blast Burn, though loves inflicting status conditions, which is highly annoying, especially since it puts Rohan to sleep on the recharge turn a lot of the time, leaving him vulnerable for several Giga Drains on the Executor. It also loves to come in when Rohan's health is low after the Alakazam fight and take him out. Though, as long as I can manage to get through this, there really isn't much of an issue. Thankfully, it never used Light Screen, which it does have in its arsenal. That would have made this fight way more difficult. Rhydon isn't too scary as long as Rohan has enough health to tank an attack from it. Although at this point, he usually doesn't have enough HP to win, so this thing became a nuisance. A Hydro Cannon or a Frenzy Plant is enough to take it out when I actually had the chance to attack it. Following that is Arcanine. Arcanine is sort of annoying as it lowers Rohan's health a lot with its flamethrowers. It also has a priority move to take me out if the health is low enough, rendering any chance of survival moot. Also, Hydro Cannon does a lot of damage. However, it's essentially a roll if Arcanine gets taken out or not, so this is just mostly crossing my fingers and hoping for the best. The final Pokemon is Blastoise. This Pokemon is especially scary as it is the only thing that stands between us and victory. It will use its first move to set up a Rain Dance, or just go for the Hydro Pump straight up. Either way, Rain Boosted or not, if he gets that Hydro Pump off, it's back to the beginning. This thing can withstand only 2 Frenzy Plants, but truth be told, the victory is extremely dependent on what RNGesus decides. And, well, after taking on this fight so many times, after so many so close attempts, I realized that this was just going to be my reality. For Lady Luck to give me a little smooch on the cheek. So I will admit that I did save state when I got to Blastoise on my successful attempt. By then, I was tired, I knew that victory was within reach, and it all depended on how the numbers rolled. So this was the most efficient way to get it done. Blastoise set up a Rain Dance every time, which gave me the chance to attack freely without having to worry about him using Hydro Pump. I got super lucky after only loading the save state a few times and ended up with a crit Frenzy Plant, taking him out. At last, this challenge is complete. Professor Oak berates our rival, escorts us to the Hall of Fame, and we are recorded. Just Rohan and I, we have done it. We have finally conquered the Kanto region and proven
it is possible to beat Pokémon Leaf Green with only recharge moves.
As a little retrospective, I had wanted to do this challenge ever since the recoil video. I finally worked out how I wanted to do it, and I'm very glad I did. During the filming, I realized that this was similar to a truant Pokemon challenge and considered maybe scrapping the idea. However, there were some key differences, namely being the accuracy of the moves used and the fact that I used a friggin' Smeargle of all things. I thought that this would be a unique, little fun one to give a try, and it most certainly was something. It probably took a max of 6-7 hours, so it wasn't all that tolling in comparison to other challenges. If I had any fixes for this run, I would say maybe get the leftovers earlier. It would probably significantly help during the Koga and rival fights. Of course, there's a matter of EVs as well, but typically I don't pay too much attention to them in these challenges, though this one was a really close shave. One last suggestion. Don't forget the HMs. That was stupid, but that's on me. So that's pretty much it for today. Leave a like, comment, share if you feel up to it. You may have seen my other challenge videos before, and if you haven't subbed yet, I recommend it for Pokemon gameplay in various streams, though admittedly I've been taking some downtime lately after a double daily uploads of Sword, but this video is to get me out of my mini hiatus. If you haven't watched me before, what's up? I'm Luster Perch Pink, and it's so nice to have you here. I promise there's new content coming. If there's enough demand for it, I might just make another one of these soon. But for now, I'm utterly exhausted, so I'm gonna take my leave. Stay cool, peace out, have a great one. Bye!